The story of a young girl, Amina, who managed to turn all her bad deeds into good deeds. You will be surprised by what happens next in this story, and believe me, it will shock you. Stay tuned until the end of the video to discover all the twists and turns. In an African city, a young African girl, very beautiful and attractive, 19 years old, named Amina. She is the only girl that her mother and her father have, despite the wealth of her family, especially her father. She makes fun of people she respects. No one in life she thinks she can get everything she desires in life, thanks to her beauty and the wealth of her parents. Not what attracts all the men of the city, especially all the men of the neighborhood, and she finds everything she desires. The car, the buildings, and everything that life can give to the human being. One day she passes in the car with her friends. A very thin man, aged 80 to 90 years old, with a mysterious stick he does third djembe with, he enters in front of the car of the young girl. Quickly she stopped the car. She gets out of the car with her lack of respect. She can no longer control her lack of respect and her scolding in front of the old man. You don't see the car you're going to get in front of a car. There's someone who's going to help you cross the tarmac. If I knew I have to push you to get through in all that your life is over, you must die tomorrow or the next day. His friends, surrounded by old people, they laughed and made fun of him. The old mysterious said, he has no way for me to look you in the eyes and have a conversation with you and help you. If I didn't get in front of your car, you have to consider that it's not by chance if I talk to you. Helping you is my last mission in this rotten world before I return to my world. She laughs again, she and her friends, to hear him say that the old man calls the girl's name with a deep voice. Amina, that's where they got scared. She and her friends impress open mouth. Amina asks, "Old mysterious, how you know my name?" Said Amina. The old mysterious said, "It's not your name. The only thing I know about you since the day you started your first breath in this world. I know of your existence. I've been watching you since you were a baby. Until now, you haven't done what you were meant to do in this world. You've done too many things. You need to open your eyes to see your true situation. You were sent into this world to accomplish many things and help many people. Instead of that, you chose the wrong side. And I don't have much time to express myself." Obviously, the old mysterious made a monkey with his finger to divert their attention and then disappear when he returns. The look towards the old mysterious, he is dismayed. His friends scream in fear and run away. He didn't even have time to get back in the car. As soon as the young girl says, "Come back, Grandpa. I still need to know a lot about me. Please, sad," she goes back home. In an African city lived a young girl named Amina. Beautiful, attractive, and 19 years old, she was the only child of an extremely wealthy family. Her father, an influential man, gave her everything she desired. But this wealth and beauty had forged an arrogant character in her. She mocked others, respected no one, and believed she could get anything she wanted thanks to her charm and her parents' money. All the men in the neighborhood were fascinated by her, and she took advantage of this to surround herself with everything life had to offer: luxury cars, buildings, jewelry. She lacked nothing. One day, while driving in her sumptuous car with her friends, she saw an extremely thin old man, about 80 or 90 years old. He walked slowly with a mysterious stick that seemed to be an extension of himself, like a third leg. Without paying attention, the man crossed the road right in front of Amina's car. Furious, she slammed on the brakes. Overflowing with arrogance and disrespect, she got out of her vehicle, her friends at her side, ready to mock him. "Can't you see the car?" she shouted contemptuously. "Do you want us to help you cross the road or something? At your age, you should already be dead." Her friends burst out laughing, surrounding the old man, who remained impassive. The old man slowly raised his eyes to her and, in a deep, enigmatic voice, said, "There are no coincidences in this world. If I'm in front of your car today, it's because it's time I spoke to you. This is my last mission on this earth before returning to my world." Amina and her friends froze. A heavy silence fell. Then the old man said her name in a hollow voice, "Amina." A shiver ran down the young girl's spine. How did he know her name? How do you know my name? She asked suspiciously. The old man smiled weakly. That's not the only thing I know about you. I've known you since your first breath in this world. I've watched you since you were a baby. You haven't accomplished what you came here to do. You were destined for great things, to help others. But you chose the wrong path. It's time you opened your eyes. Amina was speechless. The old man raised a finger and made a strange gesture. In a split second, he disappeared before their eyes. Her friends screamed in terror and fled on foot, even forgetting about the car. Amina, however, remained frozen. Come back, Grandpa. I still have so much to learn about myself, she begged, distraught. But it was too late. The old man had disappeared. Sad and troubled, Amina returned home, aware that a change had just taken place within her. Amina and the mysterious old man. This is the story of a young girl, Amina, who managed to transform all her bad deeds into good deeds. You'll be surprised by what happens next, and believe me, it will shock you. Stay tuned until the end of the video to discover all the twists and turns. But before you start, don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. It's completely free and it supports me enormously. Share this video with your friends and family. Spread the word. If you're a real fan, a big thank you. Amina, at 19, was the embodiment of beauty. Her captivating gaze, delicate features, and elegant figure turned heads wherever she went. Since childhood, she had understood that her beauty was her greatest asset. She didn't speak much, but her appearance was enough to attract the attention of everyone around her. Men, young and old, rushed to compliment her, stare at her, and desire her. And Amina, far from being offended, revelled in this adoration. She knew that her beauty allowed her to manipulate situations to her will. She always dressed perfectly, choosing expensive garments that highlighted her curves and grace. Every move she made seemed carefully orchestrated to maintain this image of perfection. Other young women, jealous of her beauty, looked at her with envy and frustration, but Amina paid no attention to them. They were mere figures in the background, insignificant in her eyes. In her world, there was only her. Her beauty was her strength, her power. Everything she desired seemed within her grasp as long as her appearance remained intact. Nothing could shatter her illusion of perfection. Amina's family wealth was another fundamental element of her life. Her father, an influential businessman, owned several successful businesses, while her mother, from an aristocratic family, lived in endless luxury. Their home, a vast hilltop villa, was filled with sumptuous furniture and rare objects, a testament to the family's high status. Amina had never had to worry about money. Money opened all doors, and she used it without hesitation. She lived a life of privilege, partying, lavish dinners, and traveling abroad. She drove luxury cars, often accompanied by her friends, through the city streets, where she was admired and envied. Amina felt invincible, protected by her wealth. She knew that few people could afford what she experienced daily. This wealth, for her, was a form of power, proof of her superiority over others. Others, those who were not as privileged, were merely accessories in her world. She had no empathy for them, firmly believing that those less fortunate than her were unworthy of her attention. For Amina, money and status were the foundation of everything. In her world of illusion, Amina believed herself unattainable. Her arrogance was her defining characteristic. She considered herself superior to everyone, especially those less fortunate than her beauty and wealth. At school, she behaved like a queen, surrounded by her friends, always ready to follow and admire her. She mocked the other students, those who were less popular, less well-dressed, less charismatic. They were merely extras in her life, people she deemed unworthy of sharing her time or space. When she walked through the city, the stares of passers-by were there to nourish her, to remind her that she was the center of the world. She relished being the center of attention, being complimented, having men bow down to her. But her true arrogance manifested itself in the way she treated others. Those who didn't meet her standards were ignored, despised. Amina believed she deserved nothing less than everyone's admiration and submission. Life owed her everything, and she didn't hesitate to demand it. Nothing and no one could ever shatter this illusion. Amina lived in a world of luxury where every day was a new opportunity to be admired. Her parents gave her everything she desired, from sports cars to designer clothes. She was often seen driving her luxury car, a gleaming convertible that drew envious glances from everyone she passed. For her, cars weren't simply means of transportation, but extensions of her status. Driving such an impressive car made her feel invincible, even more powerful in the eyes of others. Parties were also a central part of her life. Every weekend, she found herself at upscale parties, surrounded by influential figures, celebrities, and friends looking for fun. Music, lights, and laughter filled the air. But for Amina, it was merely a backdrop to her personal spectacle. She walked among the guests, making herself noticed, carefully choosing which compliments to accept and which glances to ignore. She sat in VIP lounges, drinking expensive cocktails, knowing the whole world was at her feet. Every party was an affirmation of her power and elevated status. For Amina, the admiration of men was a game she mastered perfectly. Every time she entered a room, eyes turned towards her, captivated by her beauty. Men, young and old, rushed to offer her compliments, flowers, or even expensive gifts, hoping to attract her attention. Amina, satisfied with her power, responded with mysterious smiles, playing with the feelings of these admirers as if they were mere toys in her hands. She knew exactly how to manipulate this attention to gain advantage, whether to gain privileges or simply to boost her ego. But when it came to treating other women, Amina showed her cruelest side. She looked down on them, often mocking those who weren't as beautiful or as privileged as she was. These women, whom she considered less beautiful, were easy targets for her sarcasm. She criticized them openly, enjoying making them feel unworthy of existing in her world. Her arrogance toward them knew no bounds. To Amina, these women were invisible, worthless. Only others who met her standards of beauty or status deserved her attention. Amina's arrogance was her greatest strength, and she used it every moment of her life. With her beauty and wealth, she thought herself above everyone else. Nothing and no one seemed able to shake her confidence. She walked down the street knowing that everyone was watching her, that everyone admired her. She behaved like a queen, unattainable and indifferent to the ordinary people around her. At school, she didn't hesitate to ignore those she deemed unworthy of her attention. Her arrogance even manifested itself in her daily interactions. When a waiter in a restaurant made a mistake bringing her food, she never failed to make a scathing remark, treating the waiter as if he were invisible. In conversations with her friends, she only bragged about her perfect life, her luxury, and her status, without ever questioning herself. For Amina, the world was there to serve her, to admire her, and all she had to do was claim it. This arrogance wasn't just a character trait, it was her way of protecting herself, of rising above anything that might threaten her. One sunny afternoon, Amina was driving with her friends in her convertible, a brand new car she loved to show off. They laughed, mocked other passers-by, and savoured every moment of their privilege. The fresh air swept through their hair, and they felt invincible, as if nothing could stand in the way of their happiness. But as they rounded a bend on a quiet street, an elderly man suddenly appeared in front of the car, standing tall with a mysterious stick in his hand. Amina braked abruptly, surprising her friends who began to laugh. They thought the man would simply move along, like any other pedestrian. But the man didn't move. He stood there, frozen, looking at them seriously, his eyes piercing Amina's facade of arrogance. Amina, irritated by this intruder, shot her a disdainful look. She wasn't going to be intimidated by a seemingly homeless old man. She waited a moment, then, haughtily, shouted, "Well, are you going to move along, or do I have to help you?" Her friends burst out laughing, but the old man didn't react. Instead of being frightened, he fixed Amina with a penetrating stare, as if seeing through her arrogance. Amina, irritated by the old man's insolence, who still hadn't moved, felt even more superior. This kind of person, who clearly had no value in the eyes of society, was nothing more than an insignificant obstacle in her path. She turned her head toward her friends, who were laughing loudly, reinforcing her sense of being above the situation. She told herself that this incident was just a distraction, a small, insignificant incident. With a mocking smile, Amina rolled down her window and shouted loudly, "Who the hell are you to block my road? Haven't you seen the car I have? If you want, I can give you some money to get out of here." Her friends burst out laughing, applauding their friend's response, as if it made her the heroine of a grand comedy. But for Amina, there was no room for kindness. This old man was nothing more than a troublemaker. She saw no point in responding to him with anything other than contempt. He had no power over her, no right to speak to her like that. To her, this man was merely an obstacle in her path, nothing more. She didn't even notice the depth of the old man's gaze, which seemed to read the depths of her soul. The old man remained motionless, as if he had anticipated Amina's reaction. He was unaffected by her contempt, nor by her friend's laughter. Slowly, he raised his staff toward her, and in a calm but strong voice he said, "Amina, your beauty and wealth do not elevate you. They are a veil that hides the true person you are. If you continue down this path, you will end up losing yourself." Amina, surprised by the use of her name, felt a shiver of incomprehension. How did this man know who she was? She suddenly felt vulnerable, a strange feeling that planted a small seed of doubt in her mind. She tried to hide her embarrassment by shrugging, but something in the old man's gaze deeply disturbed her. Her friends had fallen silent, realizing the situation was becoming more serious. The old man continued, his tone even more serious. "I am only a messenger. You have the power to change, but if you refuse, everything you've built will fall, and you'll find yourself alone in the cold without knowing who you are." Amina froze, unable to respond. A strange feeling passed through her, a mixture of worry and curiosity. Silence fell between Amina and the old man. He fixed her with a penetrating gaze, a gaze that seemed to go far beyond her mere appearance. Amina suddenly felt vulnerable, a feeling she had never experienced before. She, the girl for whom everything came easily, whose beauty and wealth were enough to attract everyone's attention, found herself unsettled by the presence of this older man. He didn't seem rushed nor afraid of Amina's obvious hostility. Rather, he observed every movement she made, every expression that crossed her face. Amina found herself looking away, but something compelled her to return to him, as if some invisible force were pulling her closer. "Your name is Amina, isn't it?" he said, his voice calm and firm. The words hit Amina like a punch. How could he know her name? She had never met him, and yet he seemed to know exactly who she was. She tried to hide her confusion behind a mocking smile, but she couldn't shake that look. It was as if he had penetrated her soul, as if he knew every one of her secrets. For the first time, Amina felt a shiver of worry. The old man, without looking away, continued speaking, as if reading her thoughts. "Since the day you opened your eyes, Amina, I've watched you. I've seen you grow up, surrounded by wealth and admiration, but that doesn't define who you are." His words echoed in the air, piercing the shell of arrogance Amina had built around herself. Amina, initially shocked, tried to maintain a defiant stance. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her words filled with contempt. But the old man continued, as if he couldn't see her anger. "You think beauty and money are all you need in this world, but that's not the case. You have a much bigger role to play, a role you don't yet know about. You're much more than just a spoiled girl." Amina froze. The words hit her hard, but she couldn't understand. A role. She had everything she wanted. Why shouldn't her existence be limited to that? The old man added, his voice deep. "You don't even realize how far you are from understanding your life's purpose, but all that is about to change." Amina remained frozen, caught between incomprehension and growing curiosity. She scrutinized the old man, searching for an explanation for his enigmatic words. "How can you say that?" she stammered, her voice suddenly more hesitant. "You don't know me. You know nothing about my life." The old man replied calmly, "I know everything there is to know, Amina. Since you were born, your path has been mapped out. But you choose to ignore it. Your life could be much greater, much more meaningful than you believe." A strange feeling formed in Amina, like a seed of doubt sown in her mind. Until that moment, she had always believed that her beauty, wealth, and status made her special. But the old man's gaze seemed to reveal a truth she had never considered. She was much more than just an heiress to a fortune. She could be something greater. The old man finished his words in a wise but firm voice. "This moment, here and now, is a turning point. You choose to continue on your path of vanity, or you will choose to understand the true reason for your presence in this world." Amina felt a shiver run across her skin. She knew her life would never be the same again. The old man stood before Amina, implacable, his eyes fixed on her with an almost supernatural intensity. "Amina, you are on a dangerous path," he said in a deep, wise voice. "You believe everything is yours because of your beauty and wealth. But you don't see the emptiness behind the life you lead. If you continue like this, you will lose yourself." Amina shuddered slightly, but her pride held her back. She wasn't used to taking other people's words seriously, least of all those of such a strange man. After all, who was he to tell her what to do with her life? She had everything she wanted: admiring friends, a wealthy and influential family, and the whole world at her feet. Yet, something in the old man's voice troubled her. It was as if his words weren't just warnings, but truths hidden beneath a layer of mystery. "You must change before it's too late," he added. Amina simply looked at him skeptically and replied defiantly, "You have no idea what you're talking about. My life is perfect as it is." But in a corner of her mind, a faint doubt was beginning to sprout. Despite her arrogant response, Amina couldn't ignore the impact of the old man's words. They echoed in her mind like an echo that kept disturbing her. She got back behind the wheel of her car, trying to dispel the thoughts that were beginning to emerge. But her gaze remained fixed on where the old man stood, now disappeared into the crowd. She shook her head, as if to convince herself that he was just a simple old fool wanting attention. Yet a strange feeling persisted, a cold chill that ran through her. Why had those words affected her so? She had never taken other people's warnings seriously. Her life was perfect, wasn't it? It had everything she had dreamed of. She turned the keys and accelerated, trying to dispel the unease that was gnawing at her. But the old man's face continued to loom in her mind. Those piercing eyes, that calm but authoritative voice. There was something about him that deeply unsettled her. It was just an insignificant encounter, she thought, but her heart knew it wasn't that simple. Something had changed inside her, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. The next morning, Amina woke up thinking about the old man and his words. Yet, she no longer paid much attention to them. She told herself it was all just a passing distraction, a bad encounter she could easily forget. After all, who could question the life she led, filled with privilege and comfort? Her looks, wealth, and status gave her everything she desired, and no one could tell her what to do. She dressed impeccably, as usual, choosing the most luxurious dress in her closet. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, she smiled proudly. She had everything she needed to succeed in this world. Why would she change? Why pay attention to the warnings of an unknown old man when her life seemed perfect? That evening, she made another sumptuous party her own, surrounded by admiring people. The music was pumping, and Amina felt invincible. She knew all eyes were on her, that she had the power to seduce and manipulate at will. She thought of the old man, but quickly dismissed the thought. No, she wouldn't change. After all, it was her life, and she intended to live it by his rules. But deep down, a small voice inside her whispered that arrogance could lead her down a much darker path. Since meeting the mysterious old man, Amina hasn't felt the same. Usually so confident and carefree, she finds herself thinking back to that deep voice that spoke her name as if it had always belonged to her. That piercing gaze, those enigmatic words. You haven't accomplished what you came into this world for. Lying on her luxurious bed, Amina tries to ignore the unease that's settling inside her. But the harder she tries to forget, the more a strange sensation invades her, as if something is watching her, lurking in the shadows. She shakes her head in exasperation. I'm just going crazy. The next day, as she walks through the grand living room of the family villa, a maid drops a stack of china plates. Usually, Amina would have laughed at her clumsiness or severely reprimanded her, but this time she remains frozen. The fear in the woman's eyes reminds her of something, a pain she's never noticed before. Why does she suddenly feel so different? That night, Amina struggles to sleep. She tosses and turns in her immense bed, but a strange sensation prevents her from relaxing. The room, although well lit by the moonlight, feels oppressive. Then, suddenly, she hears a whisper, faint, indistinct, like a whisper carried on the wind. You must accomplish your mission. Amina bolts upright. Her heart is pounding. She scans the room, but she is alone. Had she been dreaming? She lies back down, tries to breathe calmly, but she barely closes her eyes when she sees a silhouette in her thoughts. The old man. His face is blurred, but his voice is clear. Time is running out, Amina. Opens her eyes. She jumps, panting. Her body is covered in cold sweat. Why was this old man haunting her thoughts? What did he mean by mission? Restless, she gets up and heads to the window. Outside, the city sleeps peacefully. Yet, within her, a turmoil is growing. She still doesn't know that her life is about to change forever. At dawn, Amina wakes up with a strange feeling, as if something has changed inside her. Her dream, or rather what she thinks is a dream, still haunts her mind. She tries to chase away these absurd thoughts by preparing for her day, but a dull restlessness persists within her. As she descends the marble staircase of the villa, she sees the maid from the day before, the one who had broken the plates. Usually she would ignore her or give her a condescending look, but this time her eyes linger on her. She notices for the first time the lines of fatigue on her face, the veiled sadness in her gaze. A shiver runs down her spine. She shakes her head and heads for the large front door. When she opens it, her breath catches. Right in front of her, lying on the threshold, is a dark wooden staff, exactly like the old man's. Amina takes a step back, her heart racing. Who put it there? How did it end up on her doorstep? She looks around, but the street is empty. A bad feeling washes over her. She then understands one thing. This encounter was no coincidence. Since discovering the stick, Amina no longer feels at home in her own life. Every morning, looking in the mirror, she feels as if the person reflecting back to her is no longer the same. Her facial features are the same, but something has changed deep within her eyes. She no longer recognizes the arrogance that once inhabited her. Everything seems different. When she passes someone in the street, a strange shiver runs down her spine. The looks she receives are no longer the same. Usually she was used to being admired, envied, but today she notices looks sad. Why? Do they see her for who she really is? A simple young girl, spoiled and selfish, or is something deeper hiding beneath this exterior? She tries to ignore these new emotions. It's just a phase, she tells herself. It will pass. But every day, the feeling of losing control over her life grows. The stick placed in front of her door seems to link her destiny to something much bigger than herself. She wants to convince herself it's nothing, but deep down, she knows something is changing. Amina is beginning to feel a distance between her and her friends. They seem to be looking at her differently, as if they're sensing something she doesn't yet understand. Her friends, usually full of laughter and teasing, now seem colder. That morning, while they're having lunch together, one of them, Nadia, makes a seemingly innocuous remark that hits her right in the heart. "You're not like you used to be, Amina. You're different." Amina smiles nervously, trying to brush aside the embarrassed air that fills the table. "What do you mean by that?" But Nadia just stares at her intensely, without answering. The silence becomes heavy. Another of her friends, Malik, watches her suspiciously, as if the transformation he perceives in her makes him uncomfortable. At every street corner, she encounters looks laden with judgment, sometimes with sadness. The people she used to see as mere tools for her pleasure seem to see her differently. She is no longer the arrogant and self-confident young girl. Amina doesn't know how to react to this new reality. She would have liked to ask them what's going on, but a part of her is afraid of the answer. Amina's unease reaches its peak when she finds herself alone in her room, the mysterious stick lying in front of her. She stares at it for a long time, wondering if it really is the key to what is happening. Should she ignore him and return to her old life? The thought of returning to her life of arrogance and superficiality suddenly seems empty and meaningless. Yet, the temptation to give up everything, to reject this transformation that is disturbing her, is strong. But deep down, something compels her to seek the truth. The old man's voice, his enigmatic words, echo endlessly in her mind. "You have a destiny to fulfill." She stands up and approaches the window, scanning the city below. The streets she thought she knew now seem foreign. Amina feels her life could be taking a decisive turn. But which direction should she choose? Seek to understand this mission that seems incumbent upon her, or erase everything and return to her gilded and meaningless existence? Her fingers brush against the stick again, and a gentle but powerful warmth emanates from it. She closes her eyes and makes a decision. It's time to discover what the future holds for her. A few days after deciding to seek answers, Amina goes alone to the city park, a place she's never really liked. It's there, around the bend of an old oak tree, that she sees him again. The old man, mysterious and calm, is sitting on a bench, a wooden stick by his side, exactly like the one he had when they first met. He looks at her without a word, but Amina feels a familiar warmth in his gaze, an invitation to come closer. Her heart beats faster. How is he here again? She hesitates, but something in his gaze urges her forward. "You've made your decision, Amina." Amina stops short, her words catching in her throat. How does he know what she's thinking? "I know everything about you." He smiles softly. "I am the one who watches over your destiny." He offers her the stick, as if to tell her it's up to her to take the next step. Amina takes it hesitantly, feeling the strangeness of the situation wash over her. "You're not here by chance." The old man continues. Everything makes sense. The old man stares at Amina with an intensity that disturbs her. He doesn't seem rushed, as if time belongs to him. "You've lived in arrogance and selfishness for too long, Amina." His voice, calm and deep, echoes in the air. "But all of that has consequences." Amina shudders. These words touch her more deeply than she could have imagined. This isn't the first time she's been told about her mistakes, but it's the first time she's heard them so clearly. The old man looks at her, his expression almost sad. "You brought suffering on others for your own pleasure, for your beauty and your power. You hurt people without even realizing it." The words he speaks seem to slide into her soul, like needles awakening buried memories. She remembers the mockery of her servants, his contempt for those less fortunate. She remembers the mocking laughter she shared with her friends over the suffering of others. "But it's never too late to mend what's been broken," the old man said, breaking the silence. "It's up to you to mend your destiny." Amina feels the weight of her mistakes pressing down on her shoulders. She closes her eyes, understanding that she must confront her past to move forward. Amina stands there, the old man's words still echoing in her head. Each sentence seems heavier than the last, each word etching into her a truth she didn't want to face. The old man is right. She lived in the shadow of her own ego, blinded by her beauty and her family's wealth, unconcerned about the suffering she caused around her. But now things are different. She looks at the staff in her hands. It feels so heavy, much heavier than it should be. It's not a simple object, but a symbol of change, a call to transformation. Amina feels the pressure, an urgency in her heart. If she accepts this mission, her life will be changed forever. But at what cost? "It's not easy," the old man said, as if he could sense her thoughts. "You must choose, Amina. Continue on your path of arrogance and superficiality, or agree to right your wrongs to help those you left behind." She closes her eyes, her heart pounding. The life she knows, the ease and luxury, now slips through her fingers like sand. But true freedom, perhaps, lies in this mission. With one last glance at the old man, Amina takes a deep breath. She has made her choice. Amina stands in front of the door of her first maid, an old woman named Mame Diara. She has always been harsh with her, ordering her around mercilessly and scorning her for her condition. Today, the memories of those times hit her hard, and the weight of shame tightens her throat. She hesitates for a moment, wondering if she's ready to face this first step in her journey of redemption. Asking Mame Diara for forgiveness won't be easy, especially after all these years of gratuitous humiliation, but she knows there's no turning back. Amina knocks softly on the door. The sound of metal against wood echoes in the heavy silence. A few seconds later, the old woman appears, a surprised look in her eyes. She seems to be studying her for a long time, as if she can't believe that the young girl from before is standing here before her, her face etched with guilt. "Mame Diara," Amina begins, her voice trembling. "I'm here to apologize. I know I've been unfair and cruel to you." The silence between them is heavy, but Amina knows this is the beginning of a long road. Amina thought her old friends would support her in her change, but the reality is quite different. The day after her meeting with Mame Diara, she went to the cafe where they usually met. She saw them already seated at their tables, laughing loudly as usual. But when she approached, silence fell. Her friends, silent at first, exchanged sarcastic glances before breaking the ice. "Look who's here, the great Amina, who wants to play the saint now." Nadia laughs loudly, a mocking smile on her lips. "Really? You think we'll forgive you just because you want to change?" Malik, one of her old friends, raises his eyebrows, visibly doubtful. Amina stands there, her heart pounding. She hadn't anticipated this reaction. She was expecting puzzled looks, maybe even a little contempt, but not such open mockery. Their high-pitched laughter rings in her ears like a whiplash, but she refuses to back down. "I know you're judging me, but I understand I've done wrong." She speaks in a calm, almost timid voice. "I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, but know that I mean it." Her friends are still laughing, but Amina remains calm. She knows it will take more than just words to convince them. Amina goes to the home of one of her former neighbours, a man she deeply humiliated during her adolescence. Mr. Diop, a respected merchant in the neighbourhood, was a simple man, always ready to help others. But Amina had always looked down on him, despising his profession and his modesty. She remembers the laughter she used to share with her friends when Mr. Diop came to ask if they needed anything, simply to get a sense of the young girl's tastes. She had never taken the time to listen to him. Today she stands in front of Mr. Diop's small shop, nervous and distraught. Each step toward the door seems an increasingly difficult challenge. She closes her eyes for a moment, remembering the old stick, the old man, and all the decisions she has made. She takes a deep breath, then enters. "Mr. Diop," she begins, her voice trembling, "I am here to ask your forgiveness. I was arrogant and cruel, and I blame myself for having despised you." Mr. Diop looks at her in astonishment, then a tired smile plays on his lips. He doesn't need any more words. He understands. Amina has taken the first step toward healing her mistakes. One foggy morning, Amina wakes up early, as usual, to enjoy the peace and quiet before the world wakes up. As she opens the door to step out into the garden, something catches her eye. Beside the doorstep, lying there like a forgotten object, is a carved wooden staff, strange and singular. It's the same staff as the old man's. Amina recognizes it immediately, even if she still doesn't understand its significance. Intrigued, she kneels down and takes it in her hands. The texture of the wood is smooth, yet it exudes a strange energy. At that moment, a shiver runs through her body. The staff isn't just an object, it seems alive, as if it has a will of its own. She holds it in her hands for a moment, observing the patterns etched into its surface. The symbols, like ancient runes, remind her of the old man's words, "You have a destiny to fulfill." Amina senses that this staff is more than just a coincidence. It has a purpose, a role to play in her quest for redemption. But what power does it truly hold? Why is it there, outside her door, like a sign of destiny? As soon as her fingers brush against the staff, Amina feels a strange, almost electric sensation. A wave of energy flows through her body, as if something invisible is invading her. It's both comforting and frightening. Her eyes instinctively close, and a flash of light bursts behind her eyelids, plunging her mind into a whirl of blurred images. Everything around her becomes blurred, and she feels as if she's been transported elsewhere. Scenes from the distant past flash before her eyes. Faces of people she doesn't recognize, places she's never visited, but which seem strangely familiar. It's as if she sees through their eyes, feels their emotions, their sorrows. She hears whispers of pain, deeply buried regrets. Suddenly she wakes with a start, gasping. The staff is still in her hands, but the energy surrounding it seems to have dissipated, like a mist dissolving in the morning. Her heart is pounding, and her body is covered in cold sweat. Amina can't understand what just happened, but she's certain of one thing. This staff has given her something greater than she could have ever imagined. She now knows that this staff holds a power she must learn to harness. After the strange experience with the staff, Amina realizes that this power goes far beyond what she had imagined. Every time she touches someone, she feels an instant connection, as if she could penetrate the depths of their soul. But it's not just a sensation. She sees their past unfold before her eyes, like a silent film, filled with pain, sadness, and moments of joy too. She understands their suffering without them needing to say a word. One afternoon, while passing a young woman from the neighborhood, Amina feels this irresistible impulse. She hesitates for a moment, but decides to place her hand on the young woman's shoulder. Immediately, the visions begin. She sees the young woman losing a loved one, a relative who was extremely close to her. Amina feels this pain, this profound loss, as if she were experiencing it in her place. She is overwhelmed, almost suffocated by the intensity of the emotion. When the visions dissipate, Amina steps back, confused and exhausted. The young woman looks at her, surprised, but doesn't seem to notice anything in particular. Amina realizes that she has just discovered an immense power and, with it, a responsibility she doesn't yet fully understand. She can't ignore this gift, but she must tame it. Amina was walking quietly through the bustling market streets when, as usual, she spotted the beggar standing by the fountain. He was still there, sitting on the pavement, his gaze lost in space, his skin wrinkled by time and suffering. His clothes were worn, and his face, though marked by poverty, held a strange serenity. Amina had always ignored him, seeing him as one of the many beggars cluttering the city. She had never taken the time to look beyond his wretched appearance. But today, something different had settled in her mind. The mysterious stick, still in her possession, pulsed gently in her hand like a signal. She stopped, a strange sensation taking hold of her. It wasn't the first time she'd passed this beggar, but today she felt the irresistible urge to approach. She leaned slowly toward him, hesitant, and as she looked more closely, a strange intuition crossed her mind. Who was he really? Why did this man seem so different from the others? Her gaze fell on his face, marked by age and pain, and for the first time she sought to understand rather than judge. Amina, intrigued by the beggar's presence, took a deep breath and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. Immediately, a wave of images flooded her mind. She found herself transported to another time, another place. She saw a young man, once majestic, dressed in robes of wisdom, surrounded by an aura of respect and admiration. This man was a great sage, respected by everyone in his village. His eyes were full of knowledge and light. But Amina felt the pain creeping into her visions. She saw him betrayed by one of his closest disciples, an act that destroyed his reputation and his heart. The betrayal was unforgivable, and the sage found himself broken, banished from the community he had served. His knowledge, his wisdom, everything he had given was now a burden he bore alone. She felt his pain, his humiliation, and the weight of shame he had carried for so many years. He was no longer the respected sage, but a broken man, sitting on the pavement, despised by those he had once guided. Amina opened her eyes, her heart heavy. The beggar was not what he seemed. He carried a past heavy with hurt and regret. After discovering the beggar's tragic past, Amina could no longer look at him the same way. Far from being a mere beggar, he was a fallen sage, broken by an unforgivable betrayal. The anger she had once felt toward him had transformed into deep compassion. She knew she had to do something. One day, while he was still there, crouching in the heat of the sun, Amina went to him, determined. She knelt beside him, taking a moment to observe his face, marked by years and suffering. "I know who you are," she said calmly. "I know your story. You are not what people think you are. You deserve more than the misery you live in." The beggar looked at her, surprised, almost incredulous. He had never imagined that someone would one day come to him like this. Amina then took a small sum of money from her purse and gently placed it in his hands. But beyond the money, it was an act of gratitude and dignity that she was offering him. "I will help you. You are not alone." This simple yet powerful gesture marked the beginning of her journey toward redemption. It was her first truly selfless act, an act of kindness towards someone she had long ignored. As the days passed, and Amina began to feel more at peace with herself. She had righted many wrongs and helped many people around her, but something strange began to manifest. A creeping unease. Whenever she found herself alone in her thoughts, a soft and seductive voice, yet filled with darkness, whispered to her mind. She heard words she knew well. "You are not made for this life. You were born to dominate. Why humiliate yourself like this? You deserve better than to live in the shadow of others." This voice insinuated itself into her thoughts at every opportunity. The old demons of selfishness and superiority were slowly returning. Amina felt her soul being torn apart, as if an invisible force were pushing her to give in to the temptation to return to her old life. Sometimes, in the streets, she passed people she had humiliated, and a strange feeling rose within her, that of wanting to reclaim her power, her status. The shadow of evil, invisible but omnipresent, seemed to draw her closer and closer. She felt the temptation grow stronger every day. Could everything she had accomplished so far crumble under the pressure of darkness? Amina found herself increasingly plunged into a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. On the one hand, she had changed. She had learned to respect others, to show kindness and compassion. But on the other, the call of evil seemed ever more tempting. The shadow that crept into her thoughts was beginning to gain ground. She knew this was a battle she had to fight alone, but every day was a test. When she passed by people she had once despised, she felt a furious urge to prove her superiority, to crush them beneath the weight of her gaze. She saw herself in the mirror of her past, proud and arrogant. But every time she succumbed to this thought, something inside her crumbled. A void grew in her heart. She sat alone in her room one evening, her hands trembling. The mysterious staff lay before her. It too seemed to vibrate with a new, darker energy. Amina closed her eyes, concentrating. She felt the struggle between her old and new selves, like a duel between two opposing forces pulling at each other. The evil wouldn't let go, but she knew now she had to fight it to the end. Amina knew the time had come. The inner struggle, the tug-of-war between her old and new values, had reached its peak. The shadow of evil that had driven her to doubt her choices and return to her old ways was now more tangible, more present. She felt it, a dark and insidious presence invading her mind and heart. One evening, while she was walking alone in a secluded corner of the city, the shadow materialized before her in a strange and menacing form. It was as if a black mist had formed, taking on a human form. The figure invited her to confront it. The shadow spoke in a deep, seductive voice. "You know, Amina, everything you've built is meaningless. Why cling to this life of sacrifice? You deserve power, wealth, fame. Give in to temptation and take what is rightfully yours." Amina felt a powerful wave of anger wash over her. The shadow's words echoed within her, and she found herself at a crossroads. But this time, she knew what she had to do. She closed her eyes and remembered the person she had become. She refused the shadow, pushing it away with all the strength of her soul. "I am no longer who you want me to be. I am Amina, and I choose the light." It had been several weeks since Amina had crossed paths with the old man. After their first encounter, he had disappeared as mysteriously as he had appeared. Yet one night, as Amina was walking near the fountain where she had first met him, she felt a familiar presence behind her. The wind was blowing gently, but the air suddenly seemed heavier, as if charged with a strange energy. She turned slowly and saw a figure at the end of the path. It was him, the old man, exactly as she remembered. Her mysterious staff lay at her side, and her gaze pierced the darkness of the night. Amina shuddered, but this time she no longer felt fear. "You've changed a lot, Amina." The old man's voice echoed through the night, like a familiar melody, yet one also filled with wisdom. Amina, though surprised, no longer felt lost or in danger. On the contrary, a strange sense of calm and understanding filled her heart. The old man slowly walked towards her, and, with a slight smile, added, "I've come to show you what awaits you, but first, you need to know who I am." Amina listened attentively to the old man's words, but doubts lingered in her mind. How could he know so much about her past, about her inner struggles? She stared at him, searching for answers in his piercing eyes. That's when he spoke, his voice calm but imbued with a lifetime of experience. "I am not what you think, Amina. I am not just an old man wandering this city. I am a guardian of destiny." The words resonated within her like a distant echo. A guardian of destiny. Amina remained silent, trying to understand. The old man continued, as if he had read her thoughts. My role is to guide lost souls, those like you who have lost their way. You've reached a crossroads in your life, Amina. You've learned many things about yourself, but now it's time to understand why you're here, in this world." Amina didn't know what to say. For a long time, she had believed she was alone in facing her choices, but hearing those words plunged her into a reality far greater than she had ever imagined. The old man smiled at her gently, like a wise father who understands everything without saying anything. The old man paused for a moment, letting his words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. Amina, her eyes wide open, waited for what would follow with impatience and anxiety. Her heart beat faster, as if the revelation that was about to follow would change everything she had known until now. She had understood that her life was not simply a succession of events, but a deeper quest, a path to follow. "Now that you know who I am and what I stand for, it's time for you to make a choice." The old man paused. "You've spent your entire life living the illusion of power, beauty, and wealth. But you also know that deep down, it hasn't brought you peace or happiness. You've touched redemption, but you haven't yet fully accepted your true destiny." Amina swallowed. She knew what he was going to say next. "You can return to your old life, regain that power, that arrogance, but all of that will lead you to loneliness and pain. Or you can embrace your destiny, accept your mission, and help others as you've already begun to do." The choice was fraught with consequences. Amina closed her eyes, sensing the magnitude of this decisive moment. She knew her decision would mark a turning point in her life. Amina stood in her room, her hands trembling as she held a letter she had just written. This letter was the final proof of her change. She knew her choice would change her life forever. Her gaze fell on the window overlooking her parents' vast estate, a property she had always considered the source of her freedom. But today, everything seemed so futile. Giving up her wealth, everything she had known and loved, was not an easy decision. But Amina knew that to prove she had truly changed, she had to make this sacrifice. She closed her eyes, thinking back on everything she had learned, the importance of humility, of compassion, of helping others. This path she had chosen was not the easy one. It was the true one. But fear crept into her. What if this sacrifice left her empty, without direction? What if she found herself alone, without the comfort she had always known? Yet, an inner voice told her not to back down. This sacrifice, though frightening, would be proof of her true transformation. She took a deep breath, took the letter, and prepared to take the first step toward an uncertain but sincere future. The next morning, Amina appeared before her father with the letter in hand. She knew this moment would be difficult, but she hadn't expected the anger it would provoke. Her father, an authoritarian man proud of his achievements, stood with his arms crossed, his piercing gaze fixed on her. "What are you doing with this?" he growled when he saw the letter. "Do you really intend to give up everything I've built for you, the wealth, the position, the future that awaits you in this world?" Amina felt her heart sink. She knew her father didn't understand. For him, everything he had done, everything he had given to his family, had a price, a meaning. But for Amina, this price had become too heavy. "I don't want any more of this, Dad. I want to devote myself to helping others, to living differently." Her voice trembled, but it was firm. Her father, furious, turned abruptly. He could not accept such a decision. "You're an idiot, Amina. Do you want to ruin everything?" He advanced on her, her voice heartbreaking. "I gave you everything and you want to throw it all away." Amina felt broken by his words, but she knew her decision was right. She wasn't going back. Amina stood firmly in front of her father, despite the fury of his words. Her heart was pounding, but she felt a new determination growing within her. It wasn't easy to stand up to him, a powerful and respected man. But she knew her choice was the one she had to make, even if it meant cutting ties with everything she had known. "I won't go back, Dad," she said in a calm but resolute voice. I'm ready to sacrifice everything for this new life. I no longer want the wealth, the power that held me captive. I want to help others, to give them what I've learned. Her father looked at her stunned. He didn't understand. You're crazy, Amina. You're going to lose everything, and I'll be responsible for your downfall. But Amina didn't hesitate. I prefer to be responsible for my life, even if it's difficult. True wealth lies not in what you have, but in what you give. She turned her back on her father, leaving no room for doubt. She knew this sacrifice was the key to opening the door to a more authentic life, more in tune with what she had discovered within herself. She was ready to face any consequences, even if it meant finding herself alone. Years had passed since Amina had made the decision to give up her wealth and her old life. Today, she was a transformed woman, an example to those seeking to change their destiny. Every day, she dedicated her time to helping those most in need, to uplifting those who had lost hope. Her heart was now as rich as her actions were generous. The city adored her. She had become a respected figure, not only for her dedication, but also for the wisdom she had acquired over the years. Her actions spoke louder than her words, and people came to her for advice, solutions, or simply a smile. The old tensions with her father had eased. Even though he didn't entirely share her choice, he recognized his daughter's strength and nobility. Amina had proven that true greatness lies not in money, but in the ability to love and serve others. She had no regrets. Her life was filled with gratitude, inner peace, and the love of others. Amina knew that her journey had transformed more lives than she had ever imagined. One sunny afternoon, as Amina was walking the city streets, she spotted a familiar figure. A young girl, dressed provocatively, walked with an arrogant stride, her eyes fixed on the passers-by as if she owned the world. Her posture, her gaze, and even the way she moved, everything about her reminded Amina of her former self. The young girl, full of pride, seemed to ignore those around her, imbued with her beauty and status. Amina paused for a moment, observing the scene with a gentleness tinged with understanding. She remembered the years when she had acted the same way, when her heart was filled with vanity and selfishness, believing the world owed her everything. The young girl walked on, paying no attention to Amina, absorbed in her own bubble, but something in her gaze caught Amina's memory. She smiled, a smile full of wisdom and compassion. Amina knew that this young girl, like herself, was at a crossroads. She had the chance to help this lost soul, as she had been helped once before. The cycle of life continued, and Amina was ready to play her part in this new story. Amina stood there for a moment, watching the young girl walk away into the crowd. She felt a deep connection with her, as if an invisible thread connected her to her past. She knew the young girl hadn't yet realized what she was capable of becoming, just as Amina hadn't once. But one day she would understand, just as Amina had. The journey of transformation was a cycle that repeated itself, and Amina was now ready to be its witness and guide. She set off again, a soft smile on her lips. This encounter, though fleeting, had filled her with new energy. She knew she had a role to play, not only in transforming her own life, but in influencing those of others. If she could help this young girl, perhaps she, in turn, would help other lost souls find the light. Amina vowed to never stop being that light, even when times got tough. The cycle of redemption continued, and she was ready to embrace it fully. The story was only just beginning.